And there we go. You are live. I've always thought that they should change that um, for us to say you are alive,
Yeah,
and
there you go.
you're alive, just so it's a reminder that
That you're actually alive.
that
The
you're
other
actually
program you can use is called Be Live. So hey, there's
yeah,
an
there
18
you
minute
be live.
teaching.
Yeah, you be live. I think that they should do that. It'd be helpful for some of us to be able to recognize I am alive. That's right. So welcome everybody to this sort of impromptu Facebook chat. I've got a couple of friends with me that you may recognize one of them, but there's a new face in the crowd here. We've had our friend all the way on the far side, Murray Dueck, on our dream show a number of times with my dad, but our friend in the middle here, he's the California friend who, if you look in the back, you'll see there's no snow on those trees.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
It's a little gray, but there's definitely no snow.
Yeah, there's no snow on the. Yeah, that's right. There might be a little gray in the beard, but no snow in the background.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is presently snowing outside here. Yeah. So we're going live. This is my good friend Murray Dueck, and then right next to me, my good friend Ron Huxley. And so I'll give them just a second to introduce themselves. But we wanted to go live and talk with you guys about an upcoming event that we have coming up this weekend. Friday and Saturday, Friday evening, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. Kind of guess it depends on your time zone, but Friday evening for anybody in North America, and then Friday morning if you're on the West Coast, and Friday that starts in the afternoon if you're on the East Coast. And so we are this event called Becoming a Non-Anxious Presence. And I love that language, becoming a non-anxious presence, because we've been overly inundated with the language of peace, especially today. Especially having inner peace, having inner serenity. It's something that's been infused into our culture. But being able to use language that gives us defining terms for what it means to be a people of peace. Being a peaceful person means being a non-anxious person. And so when I put that in when I highlight that, all of a sudden I can go, oh, I realize there are many times in my life where I've walked away from the path of peace because I've embraced the life of anxiety. And, anytime, especially during COVID, right? Finances have been interrupted with people. Work has been interrupted with people. Relational disunity, political disunity, regardless of every sphere of society, it seems like we're faced with something that drives anxiety. And so following Jesus was the ultimate presence of non-anxiety. I mean, one of the great pictures that we have of a non-anxious person is a storm raging around a boat and a man sleeping, right? This isn't just peace. I mean, it is peace in its purest form, but when we define that, we see someone who did not live in a way driven by anxious thoughts, driven by an anxious presence. And so I love having that kind of language to talk about what it looks like to live a life deeply rooted in Christ. And so that's coming up this weekend. It's a Zoom webinar because it's very difficult for us to all be in one place, given travel restrictions and all that kind of stuff.
All the things that cause anxiety.
Come here, yeah. You should come here, actually, yeah.
I would agree.
Yes. You should come to California.
Yeah, right.
Could congregate on the beach and talk about what it looks like to not have anxiety.
That's where the peace is. Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, well, we don't need to talk about it anymore. We're just sitting on the beach. We're experiencing it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, it is. It is true. I think the tagline for the event is abiding and being. So if that happens at the beach, it's much easier.
All the better.
One of my friends who's going into ministry used to say, when God calls you to California, all he needs to do is speak in a still small voice.
That's right. Yes, you don't need any earth-shattering revelation.
Yes, Lord,
I'm
going. I accept your calling.
Yeah.
Is that there was this great Babylon Bee article. I remember reading the headline years ago. It said, coincidentally, man feels led to do the thing he wants to do. That's the California moving thing.
Right. Yeah.
I always wanted to move to California, and now God says it to me. Yes. So Friday and Saturday, we've got this coming up. You're looking at, I'm going to be speaking. My friend Ron Huxley is going to be speaking. He's over here, and then all the way over there, my friend Murray Dueck is going to be speaking. So I'll be talking specifically about essentially what the practice is, especially as it pertains to historic Christianity, what the practices look like of walking into a place of knowing Jesus, being formed by Jesus, being led by Jesus, because it's only in connection with him that we find ourselves living a life of peace. I remember one man that I've followed in my life, John Paul Jackson, he said there's a difference between serenity and peace. Serenity means calmness of circumstances. That's how he defined it. Peace means presence of being, Jesus with you. So the difference between having external circumstances being calm and claiming that you have peace, but as soon as it's upended, what does it look like to actually root yourself in that? So I'll be talking about that on Friday night. And then on Saturday, we've got Ron. Ron is one of my dear friends. Ron and I have known each other. Ron saw the transformation happen in my life. So he remembers previous Josh and the Josh that many people would not have listened to.
The before and after.
The before and after story. Yes, that's right. And so Ron is a licensed family and marriage therapist. He has his own private practice in the Central Coast of California, where I grew up. And he specifically lives in Cambria, and he works with people, I mean, doing training and stuff all over the world, but working specifically with clients in the area as well. And Ron, you're in your background, you're a bit of an expert when it comes to, you use this language in trauma-informed care. Yeah. But specifically, you've got quite a bit of experience in the area of adoption and how trauma has impacted children that come from families without parents. And so just I'm going to turn it over to you in just a second, but just say, wonderful to see Kim on. Kim is a great friend. Randy, awesome. Great to see you. Hope the church is doing good down there in New Brunswick. And Berta, great to see you. So wonderful that all these people are jumping on. And so, Ron, so tell us a little bit about what you're going to be bringing to the table on Saturday, your morning, some people's afternoon, what it looks like, how trauma, I don't know that most people have considered the fact that the anxiety they feel presently today could very easily be rooted in a trauma that happened to them 5, 10, 15, even 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of us get kind of surprised by that fact, but and so one of my work is with trauma-informed care, looking at what that means is looking at whatever behavior or situation is coming up in people's lives that might bring some impairment in some area, and then looking at what is the underlying trauma, i.e., trying to let trauma inform the work that we're doing to help us. The practical application of that is that a lot of people will put their life together, they'll work through issues, and there's a lot of research on different social service systems where we provide support and resources and money and training to help people from homelessness or addictions or other things. And then the recidivism rate is very high when we don't actually address the trauma as well. Right. Like you can provide all the external serenity, as you said, but then if you don't actually work on what's fueling the problem in the first place, then all that stuff just come crashing down again. So we want to be able to look at what's underneath the surface of the situation. And so it doesn't mean that someone who's experiencing anxiety necessarily has gone through some type of traumatic event in their life or a series of traumatic situations. But a lot of times that will aggravate the anxiety. So like in the last 2 years, that a lot of people who didn't experience anxiety at all are experiencing anxiety now as a result of all that's been going on. But those people who had already were experiencing anxiety have saw that dramatically increase. So anxiety and depression and substance abuse and suicide, all those things have dramatically gone through the roof as a result of the issues that we've gone through in the last 2 years.
Right. Right. On that, and that's, I mean, that's fascinating. I find it's in a way incredibly predictable, but
Yeah.
nobody could have foreseen it at the same time. And we had a society that's being driven by anxiety. I mean, we're consciously presented with feel anxious about yourself because you don't
Yeah.
measure up.
Yeah, that's not enough. It's kind of the thing that really undermarks the lies that we believe about anxiety and that cause anxiety is that we're not enough. We're not enough as a husband, not enough as a wife, we're not enough as an employer, employee. We don't do enough. And so all that not enough, not worthy of God's love. And so that affects every area of our life. It affects our body in terms of our physicality. It affects our thoughts in terms of intrusive
Right.
thoughts and negative feelings and emotions. And then it also affects our relationship with God. And it tends to squelch our ability. So a lot of people who
Right.
are extremely anxious or depressed will feel like they can't really hear from God or that God isn't talking to them or is silent. And that's a result of some of what anxiety does to shut down that connection.
Right. Right. One of the things I've noticed is that, it's almost when you use the term trauma, which I like using the term trauma because the events that we experience in life are traumatic.
Yeah.
And Lean's asked a question here. Can I see it afterwards if I miss one of the sessions? Absolutely. The recordings will be made available directly after the event. So that will be done through the WIN Training Academy. There'll be a link. There's a link in the video description to register for the course, which is with the WIN Training Academy, which is our academy for training. And so all the videos will be there as well. So great question, Lean. Going back to what I was saying is, I like the language of trauma, because it perfectly identifies what's actually happened.
Yeah.
But sometimes people hear the language and they say, well, I've never experienced any trauma. I haven't been sexually molested or raped or, so we impute a lot of meaning to the term trauma. But do you have unresolved pain? And have you been hurt in the past 20 years? And does that hurt still exist? And we can dumb down the terminology, but to try and approach it and say, well, I don't have any trauma, I've never had anything bad happen to me, not that they would characterize that way.
I think it's a differentiating between what is big T trauma and what's a little T trauma.
There you go.
The big T trauma are like these major events. I was attacked, or I had a major car accident, or I was, sexually molested. And those are certainly huge traumatic events, but we all go through little T trauma, which is just the daily life struggles that we go through. Life can be a lot about how we manage suffering and how we deal with problems that come up. And the more we have, the more those little T traumas start compiling, and those little T traumas start becoming big T traumas, and the effects of like a big T trauma, which might create post-traumatic stress disorder. It's the old metaphor of the boiling frog. You put the frog in hot water, it jumps out, you put it in and slowly heat it up, it boils to death. So we have little T traumas that we just sort of like, that's just how life is. That's just kind of how we had to deal with stuff as a kid, or this is just part of the struggle of living, and they are, but over time they can have a compounding effect. So now, as a result of all those little T traumas compiling, we see people burning out, having compassion fatigue, dealing with their own secondary trauma. I may not be the one trauma, but I'm dealing with those people who are dealing with that trauma. And this is for any helping profession, pastors, other people who are serving. They can begin feeling compassion fatigue and burnout.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Wow. So I on that note, I want to lob it over to Murray and say, tell us your story of feeling compassion fatigue and burnout, Murray. But we don't have time for that. So you'd have to register for the event.
We'll have to save that for another day, and then we'll have Ron work on me live as a guinea pig.
Yeah, there we go. That's right.
We'll do a demo. Right. Yeah, it sounds good.
That's
but to
good.
which I also want to say to everybody watching, tell us your story about compassion fatigue and burnout, especially in the last 2 years, because I mean, that I could so resonate with that kind of language and that concept. So moving on to Murray, because I don't want Ron to share too much, because then we'll be here forever and we have a limited amount of time.
Then there'd be no point coming.
And there'd be no point in coming to the.
They'll all be so depressed. Yeah.
There
are answers though. Yeah.
As long as we get you depressed, then we've done our job. So Murray, my dear friend Murray Dueck, runs a ministry that he started. It feels like an eternity ago.
Year 2000. Yeah, it's
2000.
22 years now. Yeah.
So Samuel's mantle, and he's continued to train and equip in the area of prophecy and the spiritual life, knowing God, discerning how to walk with God, all that kind of stuff. And just a significant voice of wisdom when it comes to the spiritual life. And so Murray, just in what Ron is saying and in some of the stuff that you're going to be talking about on Saturday, what are your thoughts about that? Because there's spiritual practices that help us, not just resolve painful situations and walk in peace, but actually be the kind of people that others need in those moments. That isn't a way that burns us out. That isn't a way that exhausts us, right? So what might it look like? What are the things you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so again, we really want to pull on kind of the wisdom of the Desert Fathers, and that's kind of the theme here, I think, moving forward, because our culture again is so busy. It's so and we tend to think that how it is for us, it's always been that way for everybody. But if you think about Jesus walking with his disciples, how long it would just take to get from Judea to Galilee. It would take, I think, if they cut through Samaria, at least 3 days. If they went around it, which most people did, it would take 6. So you're hanging out with these guys, these other 12 guys. You're eating together. You're spending time together. We tend to take Jesus at his highest moments of teaching, his highest moments of doing the stuff, without realizing it's in a context of a lived life of fellowship with people, times of prayer, and we don't give ourselves that kind of time, and to walk with the Lord. A question I like to ask people is, what are you baptized in? Right? Some people are baptized in lemon juice, right? And it just comes out all over the place. I mean, there's a story of this old guy who woke up and somehow he got this piece of like blue cheese on the end of his nose. And he's like, this room stinks. He goes outside, it stinks out here too. Everywhere stinks but me. And, not realizing that he got it on him. And I think sometimes in our culture, Ron, when my friends from your area would come up here to do stuff, so I had some friends from that area, San Luis Obispo, Pismo Beach, and people in your area always seem like they're on a 4-day weekend to me. They always they're so relaxed, and they'd come up here to do something with me, and they'd rent a car, get on the highway, between Vancouver and Abbotsford, and go, I don't know what it is when I'm here. I just got to keep driving faster and faster. And there's like all these things I haven't got done, and I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm like, well, welcome to the Fraser Valley. And they're like, wow, I don't experience this where I live. Sometimes we're not aware that outside circumstances affect our emotions. Being around other people and their belief systems affect our level of peace. And we're not doing anything to pastor our own soul that brings peace out of us to others. And that starts with learning how to be a little bit reflective about how society affects you. And often as Christians, we feel so guilty if we're not working or doing something. We don't even give ourselves the time, because we're like, well, look at all these compassion burnout, all these people in need. And a great book by Charles Bellow, who's one of the vineyard overseers in the California area, where, running a church, doing meetings, doing this stuff. And God finally said to him, Charles, if you don't let me love you, you're not going to make it. He goes, well, what do you mean? Look at all this stuff I'm doing. And there's a difference between having intimacy with Jesus and it influencing everything you do, rather than working for Jesus, trying to be something, right? And, Saint Seraphim of Seraph would say, work at having a peaceful spirit and thousands will be saved. And
Wow.
and so, I mean, he didn't do any public ministry for 20 years, I don't think. And he's gone down as one of the biggest influences of his church, right? But would we want to put 20 years aside and just work on ourselves, or would we feel guilty about that?
Right.
Well, where does that guilt come from? What does it cause me to do? How does it affect me on a daily basis? How do I work on this peaceful spirit and make that daily? Having a sabbatical rhythm, learning to go on personal retreats, learning to be with people that feed your soul. There's all kinds of learning the Jesus prayer, which is something I'd really like to talk about myself. Learning how to have a contemplative lifestyle where you're living inside out, right?
Yeah.
That you're experiencing this river of the life coming this way and feeding your soul, and you take that with you rather than, oh, I'm so tired doing all this stuff or my identity's external. I mean, so getting things in the right order, knowing what you're baptized in, living from a place of peace, and then learning how do you do that as a lifestyle, right? Which is kind of this early church and the way the church has walked through millennia, that and based on development rather than on doing, and very much a developmental model of becoming spiritual mums and dads.
Yeah.
And I'll just finish with one last thought. I used to hang out with this Orthodox priest, and I would challenge him, why do you guys lock up all your best people in monasteries? He goes, well, we don't lock them up. I would playing hardball. And he goes, but you know what, if you need to get some prayer, I mean, they pray 20, 30 years. And if you need to go hang out with someone, you just go there and you'll make a friend with one of them and they'll become your spiritual mom and dad for the rest of your life. How do you find spiritual moms and dads in your church culture? I'm like, yeah, we don't, because it's not a priority. And one reason we have anxiety sometimes in our church culture is we've never thought that mentoring and having a spiritual mom and dad was a part of the church, when historically it has always been for thousands of years.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good.
That has to change. And we'll talk about how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And totally crucial to the life of formation and the life of looking like Jesus and walking like Jesus. And so excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Murray. And thank you, Ron, for sharing. Just highlighting some of the questions and responses here. Randy said, if you trust more in Christ Jesus, can your anxiety and depression go away? Come to the...
Wow. It would be more like, how do you bring that to Christ?
Yeah. And that's good. Reframing how we think about that. So
that's a great question. Thank you.
And I do want to say, for anybody, I'm going to put a link to the event here in the chat. Also, it's also in the video description. And if anybody has an issue with being able to afford the cost, just let me know and we'll work something out with you. So I love anybody that really goes, oh, I need something like that. That'd benefit me. Don't let the cost be a barrier to you. And if you can afford it, great, because
it helps.
It helps very much so. Yeah,
it helps buy hay for animals on my part.
Yeah,
yes,
lowers our anxiety.
Well, hay for my animals, which are my children. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. So, so anyway, take a look at the event. As I said, the videos will be available afterwards to watch if you're not able to attend each one of the sessions. I'm looking forward to this, just looking forward to being able to pull on Ron and Murray, for two guys who are experts in their field, and there's so much overlap with what you guys do, but many people don't connect the overlap with what each one of you guys do. And so I'm looking to see that intersect and looking forward to
it'll
that.
be great. So, I love the format where we get to talk and draw out of each other, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there'll be some lecture presentation time. That'll be short, because a lot of what we want to do is facilitate conversation, exercises, practices that we can employ, be very hands-on and practical, times of dialogue and Q&A too, and being able to respond to the practical questions that you may have in regards to all these kind of things. So I'm looking forward to it, and check it out, guys. And Murray and Ron, I will see you guys later. And we'll see all you, Facebook, YouTube land, all that. We'll see all you guys later too.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh.
Until next time. Bye.
Okay.